Welcome, welcome to Catching Up with Conception, where I, Audra Smith, fertility coach, host interviews about all things fertility. Nothing is off limits, and we are here for radical acceptance of the good, the bad, and everything in between in the world of fertility. Now, if you like what you hear today, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. It may not seem like much, but engaging with the content helps so much. Also, if you connect with this content, please reach out so we can help you and meet you wherever you're at. Welcome, welcome. So today on our podcast, we have Judy Simon, a fertility dietitian. Welcome, Judy. Thank you for joining us.
Audra, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to talking all things nutrition and fertility with you today.
Oh, absolutely. Can you tell us about yourself a little bit before we started recording? I had to stop us because it was so good, and I'm excited to let everyone know all about you.
Great. Well, I've actually, if I go way back, I'm probably interested in this field of fertility, conception, healthy pregnancies, because I went on my own infertility journey many years ago for probably about 7 years. And I found like so little support. This is before social media.
Exactly.
Right? There weren't support groups, and I felt super alone. And I kind of had this magic number of 30, that by 30, I was in a really solid marriage. I wanted to have kids. Well, we were already up to 33 before I had my first child. I had a miscarriage before I had her. It felt like a really lonely journey, and I felt like there
Yeah.
weren't many answers.
Thank you
So
for sharing that. It's not an easy topic, but I appreciate your openness.
it's not easy, and so fast forward, I was fortunate enough with some assisted reproductive technology, even though I had unknown infertility. I did have my daughter, and then moved to the beautiful Seattle area, and I decided, okay, I'll look for a job, and didn't have a lot of family support or people, so I go, I'll wait till she's one, and then I was pregnant with the next one, and
Oh, wow.
he was kind of a shock. I had no idea. I was so happy to have one. So he was my bonus kiddo. So I
That's what
did
happened
take
with my
off.
mom.
Yeah. So, it had made me think, Audra, for sure, um, about environmental impacts on fertility.
Oh, yeah.
So think about it. I lived in the Midwest. I was a kiddo who grew up with very polluted lakes back then, like Michigan and all. We ate a lot of we ate a lot of fish. We had a lot of things that were probably not the healthiest, and environmental, regulations were
Mm-hmm.
different. And then I feel like, wow, I was able to conceive when I moved to Seattle. So I always kind of have a piece of that. And I always discuss endocrine disruptors with my patients. So
Oh,
something
yeah.
I always think in the back of my head, what was different? I was older, what was different?
And I
Um,
love that it's becoming such more mainstream to discuss things like this.
it
People
is.
are more aware of it, and I love that you had the kind of intuition to kind of catch on to
Yeah.
that way back then.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that made a difference in lifestyle and environment. So when I went back to work, I took off a little bit of time to raise my kiddos. And I started doing some teaching at night, but I was really fortunate to start a career at the University of Washington at a medical center. And honestly, you know what my first entry into this world was PCOS.
Oh, I mean, that
Um,
makes sense.
Yes. So I didn't have it, but I was working in a family medicine clinic, and I was starting to see over and over again women, maybe like late 20s. They had been put on oral contraceptives on the pill because they were having irregular, painful periods, no diagnosis.
Yeah.
And then they might come off because they wanted to get pregnant or they were tired of it. And what was happening, what I was seeing over and over again, is they either weren't getting their periods back or they were really irregular. And then they had all these symptoms. It might have been weight gain, loss of hair, hirsutism, different symptoms. And I'm like, I really wasn't trained in this area back in my day. So,
Yeah.
super lucky to meet my co-author, Angela Thayer, who at the time was also working at University of Washington. And I'm like, reproductive endocrinologist, you need to teach us dietitians everything you know about PCOS because we already knew lifestyle made a difference. So that was kind of my entry into the fertility world. So, working closely with the docs, with those departments, getting the referrals to help them with lifestyle. And then, when a group of doctors left the university, started one of the largest fertility clinics in the Northwest or the West Coast, they're like, "Hey, Judy, we want to send our fertility patients to someone." I said, I've got this other 2 days a week. Maybe this would be the perfect time. My kids were older to open a private
Yeah.
practice. So that's what started Mind Body Nutrition. And really, the very first patient who I was afraid nobody would show up, Dr. Thayer had sent me a patient who had PCOS, and I helped her have 2 kids, with working with lifestyle. So it really was rewarding, and I was seeing more and more women, and back then, and we're talking 18 years ago, Audrey, the women that were sent to me tended to be more the women in larger bodies who were
Mm-hmm.
often told just lose weight and you'll ovulate, or just lose weight and your
And it's
PCOS will
not
be
helpful.
better, right? So, but the positive thing is instead of just saying just lose weight, at least they gave them a resource of a professional to talk to. Well, I learned
Mm-hmm.
out really quickly that it doesn't matter what size you are when it comes to fertility. How do we help optimize your health? So you're ovulating regularly, you're having a healthy body, you're reducing inflammation. That you work with the person's team, to find out, is there a cause for their delayed fertility or infertility, but how can we help them be healthy? And most of them were women. I tried to include their partners. And they were so lovely, Audra, that I kept thinking, wow, I'm talking to them all about healthy eating and lifestyle. What if we started a class? And so, because I knew Angela and her clinic was willing to give us space on a Saturday with no template, my background was also in public health and health education. That was my master's. I thought, wow, what if I do this? I just kind of made it up as I went. A 7-week class where for 7 Saturdays, women who were interested would meet with me first. I'd get them going on what was healthy for them, and then we would meet literally in the break room of this clinic, up to 10 to 12 women on a Saturday. And each week there was a different theme, and we cooked. So instead of just saying
Oh,
eat
I love
healthy,
that.
if it was greens week, we were doing massage kale salad. We would make a soup that had greens in it, so that they came each week to learn something positive to add in on their fertility journey.
Yes, we're adding. We're not taking things away. We're trying
Yes,
to add
adding.
to, we're
Right.
benefiting.
Which I know is your philosophy because I've watched, follow your work. And then we
Oh,
also would talk about lifestyle. Like with these habits, what's going to help your body be the healthiest? So many of these women were in larger bodies, and they weren't the type that, not all of them, went to the gym and stuff. And my favorite story was out of the first group. I had a gal said, well, I don't really want to exercise because I get sweaty. And somebody else jumped in and said, "Oh, you're not wearing the right clothes. You need a wicking top." And they would all support each other. So
oh, I
after
love that
each
so
class,
much.
yeah, so after the 90 minutes of cooking and goal setting and learning, we would always take a walk. I'd say wear comfortable shoes. We're going to walk outside along Lake Union. And we would do it rain, snow, whatever. We would take a walk, and that gave the women kind of a time to talk and have that social support and community.
Exactly.
That
That's
would,
what I keep thinking as you're talking. Like you've given a community for, especially like if exercise is not something you're accustomed to, or you've been told by every
mhm.
doctor you just need to lose weight and that's why you're not pregnant, which takes in a lot of shame,
Yes, it does.
right?
Right.
It's a nice, safe, like just community, and I love that.
Right. And
Sorry to
people,
interrupt. I just
yeah,
loved it so much.
no, that's great. And, and people could talk as much as they wanted, but we didn't sit and focus on diagnoses. We just talked about real life. Like who's
Mhm.
working? What are the easiest breakfast ideas you have? And in the very beginning, the first few years, we even used to have a brunch at the last class. If they had a partner, they could bring a partner, bring something with. We'd have a brunch. I mean, things really evolved over time. And for many years, I would do monthly follow up groups, support groups when women had graduated. But a lot of the women took the class 2 and 3 times, the 6 weeks class, because there's a lot of waiting in fertility. Sometimes people,
Yes.
were trying to do natural cycles or assisted reproductive technology, or back then they had to make a weight cutoff, so they would want to do something in the
Oh,
meantime.
wow.
So these
Yeah.
programs were successful, and Angela and I would we got a lot of stories out of them. And in our book, which I'll talk about in a minute, we we had so many stories, but I think we put 9 or 10 stories because we wanted to share the stories with the women on their struggles and how some things they learned or they implemented in their lives made them so fuller and helped them to be fertile and have healthy pregnancies, right? So we collected the stories, we collected the favorite recipes, and at first Angela had the idea, let's do a cookbook and this and that. And I have to tell you, I'm like, oh man, I have recipes all over the place. Let's see. But as we went on, Angela, who is an overachiever, she's amazing. Not only is she was double board certified as a reproductive endocrinologist, OBGYN,
Wow.
she also was is board certified in lifestyle medicine. She took a really great interest into let's expand that we're including that we are talking more about stress and we're talking about endocrine disruptors, really lifestyle type of medicine. And then came COVID. So we learned,
Yeah.
right? How did COVID affect the fertility world? Do you remember?
Well, I remember that I went through IVF during peak COVID and I had to
Oof.
sign paperwork every which way that said if my husband or I got COVID, they could cancel our cycle. So we literally saw no one.
Right. So
Like we
remember
did not
how,
go anywhere, we did nothing.
yes. So the world kind of shut down and we were in the middle of a class. It was like week 2. And we're
Oh
like,
gosh.
uh-oh. And we did, I remember when it was starting to happen and Angela was kind of talking to the participants. We're like, we don't really know where this COVID thing is going with fertility. So we ended up pivoting to a virtual format that was new for both of us. Like, how do you use your laptop and your iPad and your iPhone? And so we said,
Mhm.
well, let's try this. Instead of me bringing all the food like we used to because we couldn't meet in person, some of the nice advantages were people had to go out and get the food. So I'd send them the recipes a week ahead of time and they learned the ups and downs of how to find different things. But then they cooked in their kitchen, and it helped us reach an audience where people as far as Alaska and
Yeah.
Oregon could participate. So that was the upswing. I really miss that we didn't have the walk. And what I tried to do for social support, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, is we switched to every other week. And on the week off, I had the groups meet on their own, like through chat rooms and stuff. I had them meet so
Oh,
that they could
yeah.
provide each other support. So we did that. But meanwhile, the whole time we were working on our book, Getting to Baby, because we thought instead of just reaching 12 women over 6 weeks, 3 times a year, and then all the individual people that we saw,
Yeah.
if we could take the class and put it in a book, it could be, I hope it's on your library. If it's not, Audra, you contact your
Ooh, I'll
local
have to
library.
check. My husband is the
Make sure
data
they have
engineer
it.
for the Seattle Public Library, and I'm literally going to make a note.
Okay, Seattle does
Make sure
have
they
it.
have.
But for
Oh,
any
well,
of
then they're
you
good.
at any libraries, I mean, I even had my son and he lives in Champaign, Illinois, and University of Illinois, and he made sure his library carried it because the idea was not everybody has fair access, as you know, to
Yes.
fertility. Their insurance doesn't cover it or whatever. So
Yeah,
I
mine
feel
don't.
like an affordable paperback Kindle or audio, but we want it to be as many libraries as possible. And we tried to make the book be a read that would be interesting. We put in stories, we put in recipes, but we put in a lot of the how to. So, how to
And that's what I
understand,
love about books.
yes,
That's what I love with these kinds of books. Like, it's great for you to talk about it, but like, what can I do? What are those steps? What are the things people can do?
yeah. So we put in a lot of culinary medicine tips, like tips 101. How do you make sure, how can you be most effective when you're trying a new recipe and you're not really a home cook? Prepping ahead of time, easy things you could do. And then in each chapter has like a theme. So I should probably tell you some of those things. So, we have the basics, the food fertility relationship, how to move towards a food first fertility plan. But then we have eat the rainbow when we talk about fruits and vegetables, whole grains, your fuel foods, lusty legumes, animal proteins, go fish, fertility-friendly fats. And then we talk about the boosters like good sleep, stress management. I don't like the word detox, so we use the words
Yeah, because you have a
fertility.
liver.
I
So,
know we do have a liver, right? You're scientific, thank you. But fertility disruptors are more like smoking, right? Nicotine, alcohol,
alcohol.
marijuana. They do disrupt. They disrupt fertility. Now, people get to make their own choices, but we try to make it pretty succinct. Here's the evidence we know. Here's our recommendations. Here's what could help your fertility, right? And
Hmm.
then we also have a lot of tips like how to set SMART goals, achievable goals for you, how to try something new every week, and kind of give people a 6 week plan. You could expand it to a 12 weeks plan if you know. So we wanted it to be something like you could do at home, but it also has when to see a fertility doctor or your doctor if you've been trying over a length of period of time. When to see a dietitian, maybe you have type 2 diabetes or PCOS, you need something more individualized, or you have an eating disorder. We want to make sure that the book is a good background and when do you need help. So that's kind of
Yeah, good tool.
is a tool, yeah. So as you can see, I've been a dietitian a zillion years. I'm lucky enough to work at University of Washington in the women's health arena, and they have a fertility clinic. I have my own private practice, Mind Body Nutrition. I teach, and I know you're in psychology,
Yeah,
so
well, so I was. Yeah, I initially I thought I wanted to do forensic psychology, right? Like
wow.
working in like it's which is really it's not what people see in the movies, right? It's really just regular psychology applied in within the criminal justice system. But after I had my daughter, I realized I just couldn't keep it at arm's length. And going through infertility myself and IVF and all of that, like I just found a love of kind of supporting people in
Which is
that
great.
arena.
But your fertility, I'm sorry, your psychology background is so helpful for coaching.
Oh, yes.
So that's
And,
something, yeah. So that's really important. So what I teach now, I used to teach maternal health at UW, but I'm down to one class, and every spring quarter I teach graduate interns nutrition counseling for chronic disease.
oh, I love
So
that.
yeah, so a lot on PCOS. They hear a lot about how chronic disease can have an impact on fertility. But what's really fun for me as being a seasoned healthcare professional is, now we've gone through how do we do counseling with telehealth, which is probably something you use, right, to support your
Yes.
clients. Used to be live or maybe phone, but now, we're at telehealth and the advantages that have. But really working with people to understand that it's not just information. And so,
Yeah.
using teaching motivational interviewing, having empathy, cultural competence. And so I'm so lucky I get to
All of that
teach that
is,
because
yes.
you have to keep up
You
with it.
keep,
So that's something I hope we tried to weave into the book. And then because I was one of the earliest dietitians that I know that really jumped into the fertility world, I'm very involved in American Society of Reproductive Medicine. I've spoken there many times on nutrition and fertility. I just did a roundtable there on kind of Whole Foods for IVF
hmm
patients, not Whole Foods the grocery store, but Whole Foods the idea of kind of a food first approach. Because so many people think, well, I'll just take all those supplements and I'll eat whatever I want.
Can
And
you talk a little more about
yeah,
that? Like that, I would love to, like,
yes,
supplements have their place,
yes,
right? When they are backed and approved and all
yes,
the things.
yes,
But can you talk about that food first approach?
yes. I love it. Well, really, what we know about fertility, if you think about it, we need to have healthy gametes, healthy eggs, and healthy sperm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And men, they're always producing new ones. So when I talk to the males and I find out how healthy or not healthy are they, I always say they'll go, "Oh, my semen analysis was great. Boom, check the box." I'm like, "Oh, wait, okay."
There's more to it than
It
that,
is
friends.
yes. So the healthier they eat and the healthier lifestyle they have, okay, that is going to be reflected in the quality of their sperm. And so, for example, we know minerals are really important for sperm Guys need
Mm-hmm.
zinc and magnesium. Well, where do they get those from? Seeds, whole grains. So there was a great study, the Frida Nuts study, where they had men eat whatever they wanted to eat. They didn't tell them what to eat, but they had them eat about 2 ounces of nuts a day over a period of time. They did their semen analysis before and after. All their semen analysis improved just
Oh,
by adding
wow.
nuts in their diet, right? They compared it to with and without. Why? Selenium, magnesium,
Yeah, oh, those
all
good
those
fats
traits,
too, I'm sure.
and right, some omega 3s, healthy fat. So it's like I always tell women if their husband or partner doesn't want to participate, make sure they're eating nuts, make sure
Give
they're
him
getting
some,
fish,
give him some
right?
trail mix.
Give them a little trail mix, right? Have a little snack. That's perfect, right? So we know, for example, there's a study. So we have enough data now that we know that women, we have all our eggs for life. This is it. We have them.
Yeah.
But we know about 90 to 100 days are kind of lining up and those follicles are getting ready to do their
Yeah.
job. Well, that follicular fluid, the follicle is subjected to the good and bad in the environment, right? So there's oxidative stress, which can be really hard on an egg, on a follicle. And then there's antioxidants. Well, we know that getting it from food is best. So, like today, I've got pomegranate seeds, really high in antioxidants, right?
I love that.
So, if people are eating at least 2 to 3 fruits a day and they're eating several servings of vegetables and they're eating whole grains, they're getting a lot of antioxidants that will reduce any oxidative stress from our environment, from the person's own individual health. Maybe they have a lot of inflammation from PCOS, type 2 diabetes, high
Mm-hmm.
cholesterol. So we know those antioxidants are going to help. And a lot of people say, well, can't I just take CoQ10? I go, you can, but your body already makes CoQ10 and it's probably safe for you. But we know you can get so much more antioxidants of diverse with
Yeah.
diversity that could help, right? So we know we can improve egg and sperm quality potentially, but for women, we also want her whole body systemically to be healthy. We want the uterine lining to be healthy, right?
Yes.
And
And
you
so all
probably
of it. It's all
the
connected.
whole body, right? And so we know that 1 in 10 women have some degree of PCOS, more than that of insulin resistance, and probably 1 in 10 women have some degree of endometriosis, which can be an inflammatory process or fibroids. So by having a more plant-centered diet, you're going to really help. And you might say, well, what about protein? What about protein? Well, of course we need protein, and you
And there's
do, right?
plant proteins.
Yes, thank you. So I was just listening to a podcast the other day and I was so frustrated because it was someone who does really good work in fertility and she listed all the food and she said nothing about whole grains, beans, and lentils. I'm like, man, you have just left out key foods for your people. Because beans are 30% protein, but besides protein, beans have fiber, which helps
Yeah.
to slow digestion, manage blood sugar, lower
Yes.
cholesterol, right? Make us feel full. They have lots of folate, they have minerals. I mean, they're loaded.
And folate's really important, especially if you're dealing with that MTHFR gene
Yep,
mutation, right? You
yep.
want to be able to
You
have plenty. And folate, for
you
those
could
who are don't know, right? You need that for like
yes.
neural tube
Yep.
formation, like in utero. So
So greens and beans. So when people ask me what's the best sources of folate naturally, I go greens and beans. So if you're eating like a kale, white bean soup with quinoa, check the box, right? So yes, we need protein and we need it throughout the day. Our bodies need it. It's very important. But the two most important animal proteins for fertility are fish if you eat it, having fish 2 to 3 times a week. Multiple studies have shown shorter time to conception with couples who eat fish and more fruits and vegetables. And then one of the pro fertility diet study that was done at Harvard a few years back, specifically looking at IVF couples, found that those women in the highest quartile that had the highest rate of live birth, they didn't tell them what to eat, but they looked at what they were eating and
mhm,
how did that eating pattern line up with take home baby, not pregnancy, but take home live
take
baby,
home baby.
right?
Yeah.
They found those women were eating 2 to 3 servings of fish a day. They were taking their prenatal. They were having adequate vitamin D. That's one that you have to supplement because it's hard to get from diet. So, but these women also ate foods from all the groups. They ate grains. They weren't necessarily vegan. And another thing that came out of this study, which I think is important, is those people eating soy, like tofu, edamame, tempeh, actually correlated with lower amounts of endocrine disruptors like bisphenol A. Like maybe it even
Hmm.
helps to clear it out. So yeah, that plant focus. And then we know that poultry is neutral, not neither good or bad. So it's a fine
Yeah.
source, but you don't have excess amounts of it. And there have been studies that have shown that kind of more longer time to conceive with a heavier red meat intake. So I always tell people if you're going to have red meat, look at the portion size, look at the quality, maybe less of the deli and processed meats. So we
Mm-hmm.
really talk about in the book adding in the plants, if you can, add in the fish. And then I recommend about 3 to 7 eggs per week because they're such a good source of choline. And choline, you know how you talked about the folate, that
Yeah.
together they help build the neurotube and prevent defects. The body needs folate and needs choline. One of the best sources for choline, because it does come a lot more from animal proteins, is eggs, egg yolk specifically. Don't throw out the yolk, it's good. It helps build hormones. And that 90% of women at pregnancy are low in choline, and we need it for babies' developing brain and it's good for women's health too. So I do if women, unless they're vegan, and if they're vegan, that's one of the supplements that I do recommend is choline if I don't
Mm.
think they're getting enough.
Yeah.
But a good prenatal, so the prenatal, I'm not going to go too much into the details because I think that's kind of an individual discussion. But a good prenatal is going to make sure that there's iodine, so thyroid is functioning properly. We don't always know what you
Yeah.
get. Adequate iron, folate, folic acid, and but it doesn't have to be everything. So some people are selling supplements like you have to take all 8 of these or you have to eat so much. Well, you're eating food. A supplement should supplement where you need.
Yeah.
So I think that's where there's many from the big box stores that are just fine. More expensive doesn't mean it's better. I think that's a good conversation to have your healthcare professional. But the most important thing is being on it 3 months in advance of when you want to conceive. So kind of
Yes.
food first, supplements to supplement, not to take the place of food. And with the women I work with, I mean, sometimes they say, Audra, they're like, oh, you know what? We eat out all the time. And I'm like, I just work with them. Where are you going? What are you choosing? What can you add in? And then if they choose
Yes.
to, I want to cook, I don't tell them, sometimes eventually when they get to know them, they go, when the baby comes, you may not always be eating out as much, but there are some good home delivery systems that have like really high quality food that you can order in, either ready made or
Oh yeah.
kits. So I try to meet people where their comfort level is and never shame anyone and make them feel bad if they don't feel like they're the home cook or how can it be really easy. And that's why I like the recipes. We tried to make it really, really easy on them. Yeah.
Yes. I
So,
like easy, and I like where you're meet. I like that what you said. You're meeting them where they're at,
yes.
right? Because I think people's relationship with food is so hard, and then when you add in infertility, like I said, it feels like when I was going through it, like people would say, well, do you think maybe if you like lost a little bit of weight, maybe you would be able to hold it? But that's not the
Oh,
thing. It's not the thing. And then
yeah.
you feel like it's your fault. Right. And if you've got insulin resistance or if you like have all of
Right.
these other factors that make losing weight difficult, like that, just you internalize that. And so I love what you said about adding to, right? Can we add some greens? Can
Yes.
we add the rainbow? Like you've got,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about one of those themes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not about what you're doing is wrong. It's what are some good things that we can add to this. To best support you and make you feel your best so that you are in an optimal position to conceive.
And the thank you for you summarized it so well. But the last point I want to make is that we want you to feel good while you're going through this process because it's probably
Yeah.
one of the most stressful processes. And I love when
Yes.
my patients go like, Judy, my gut feels so good. I didn't realize adding fiber, I'd be pooping every day and feeling good. And the gut biome, we
Yeah.
have a whole chapter on that. It's so important. You just helped your gut.
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't be constipated. So a lot of times I work on the gut stuff, feeling good, getting the body to do what it needs to do. And with some of my patients, you know how this is with your clients. Sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm starting IVF cycle like next month. Okay, what can we do now that's going to have the most impact to get prepared for pregnancy? My patients are often older. They don't want to wait. They're not doing a 6 month program waiting. Their eggs are getting older. So it's like,
Yeah.
what can do the most bang for the buck now? And that's the gear that we move into. Sometimes I see women with PCOS like, I'm thinking about 1 or 2 years, but I want to get healthy first. We can meet you there. So I love that you're so supporting health, being non-judgmental, recognizing there isn't one path for everybody and what works for everyone
Exactly.
is not the same. And I always tell my patients too, what you're eating now, it's that first 1,000 days for that baby's life. It starts 3 months preconception, what you're eating, and then the being able to lower the stress in your household for your family, for that baby, that is going to help what impacts the genetic imprint of their life and their chronic diseases. So
Yes.
making that difference, making sure someone has help with their diagnoses. And very, very last night, because I said the last note, you'll see that I included one story with someone who had an eating disorder. And I think that's important because sometimes, Audra, women come to me and they give me this list and they go, I'm not eating in the name of a million things. I'm not having seed oils. I'm not having gluten. I'm not having dairy. And what's left is the most restrictive diet. And I listen. I never say good or bad. I ask them, can you share with me, why have you chosen to go
Yeah.
on this route? And then I go, okay, you're here in my office with me. Would you like to hear, my opinion? And a lot of times you screen out for orthorexia, obsessiveness with food, or often an eating disorder. And you can be
And
way,
infertility can really ping in on that because you're like,
yes,
if I
it
eat this
can.
wrong thing, then it's going to be the
Yes.
cause, or it.
Yes. And I have patients go, oh, I should have eaten cleaner. And what does that definition mean to you, that word that's loaded? So you hit on some really good points to be careful for weight stigma. I have patients, and this is a trigger warning in case people don't like to hear pounds, turn off for a second. I have several women who weigh over 300 pounds who I help to be in a very healthy space. They had healthy pregnancies and they've gone on and had their second or third babies. Okay. So no matter what size, and then I've had women who maybe they were thin, but no matter what their size is, they weren't eating enough. And until IVF didn't even work, until they finally realized that you are not going to make hormones, your reproductive axis is shut down when you don't eat enough. Those women are often the most challenging because they're undernourished, so they're kind of crabby. But once they kind of see the science and get it, they'll often that's why there's a good story in my book about that. It really makes a difference. And the gal in my book with that story has 3 children now. So I
Oh,
mean,
how lovely.
there's help. So I appreciate, Audra, everything you're doing, and I'm so excited that
Thank you
you're
so much.
sharing my book as a resource. And I'm so impressed that you're out there on social media because it's a big time commitment to do a podcast. You're amazing to do that.
But see, what I have found with the podcast is that I think I get more out of it than the like time that it like takes to
Oh,
do
that's
and
good.
edit.
That's
And I
great.
love getting to meet with people and, connect. And it kind of, I can be a bit of a hermit. And so it like forces me out of my comfort zone to like connect with others and like build those relationships and
Oh, that's
just
awesome.
find even more supports for people. And so I've loved it and
Yeah.
it fills me with a lot of hope. And I talk about this every episode. I get to meet the helpers, the people that are trying to make the
Oh,
world a better place.
and
So
and
it's really awesome.
well, you're on my list now. For my patients, always say, "Who should I listen to?" So
Oh,
I'm
I love that.
excited
Thank you
that
so
you
much.
can be on my list, and I definitely I'm excited for this to come out. I'll be sharing it on my social. And
Yeah.
you folks can, if they have questions, I'm at
Yes, I was
Fertile.
going to ask you.
Yes, Fertile Nutrition is my Instagram handle. I can't remember my blue sky because I just started that one, but easiest place is Fertile Nutrition. My website and my business is Mind Body Nutrition. So Judy at mind-body-nutrition.com. You can reach me out with questions, and I'm happy. I love being a matchmaker for people, helping them find resources if I can. And if you read Getting to Baby or you've read it, please, please, please give us a review on whatever platform you enjoy, because it really helps more people if we can get the word out. So thanks so much,
Absolutely.
Audra.
Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of Catching Up with Conception with me, Audra Smith, fertility coach. I want to thank you for joining us and ask you to subscribe to this podcast on whatever app you're listening on. It may seem small, but it really does make a big impact. Catch me on Instagram and TikTok at Fertility Coach Audra and on our next episode of Catching Up with Conception.